I'm really excited for you to listen to this episode. I sit down with LaQuitcha Walker, also known as comedian Lady Q. Get ready, you are going to laugh. Her and I had such a great chat, and so much of what she does as a comedian and storyteller applies to the writing life. She writes jokes and she prepares for speaking events. Just like you prepare for events, you might also be preparing for speaking. But I really love her advice on how to show up as authentically you. Be yourself. It really is that simple. She has lots of extra tips in here, and I think you're also going to love hearing behind the scenes of how a comedian comes up with their material, how they refine their jokes, what they do when a joke doesn't land. Enjoy. Welcome to How Women Write, the podcast for author entrepreneurs to find inspiration and flow. Get easy to implement writing and business lessons, plus interviews with relatable and inspiring women to help you create a sustainable writing habit that grows your business and leaves a lasting impact. I'm Jacqueline Fish, communications consultant, 3-time author, and intuitive writing coach. Let's go. I have Keisha Lady Q here. I can't tell you how excited I am to introduce you to a comedian, the first comedian I've had on the podcast, and actually the first comedian I know in real life, which is exciting for so many reasons. When I heard she was a comedian, I didn't necessarily click right away, like, oh, I want to have you on the show. It was like, oh, comedians write. They're storytellers. Oh, I have to have her on How Women Write because we want to know about this. So welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me. It all coming together and clicking. Because when you said you were right, I'm like, well, I don't write. I really don't even read a lot. It's so out of my element. Then when I thought about it and started to think about writing new material, I'm like, Jacqueline can give me some pointers. So here we are. It
I
finally
love
clicked
it.
for the both of us.
I love it. And you're funny and you're a clean comedian. So there's a distinction. There's
Yeah.
I have so many questions for you. I do want to talk about reading and writing. As you mentioned, you don't read a lot or consider yourself a writer, but how does one become a comedian and a clean one? Tell us your story.
I think it's something that you're naturally born with, where you naturally have this personality where you can lighten a room, make people laugh, and you're not even trying. And that was always me. And I never ever knew that until I was on social media and I'm doing comedy. Because at first, when was it? 2008, a lady came and a lady, which is a pastor's wife, I was teaching at a Christian school, and she asked me to come to her church and make the women of her church laugh because she was having a women's conference. I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You tell the most hilarious stories, and when I leave your presence, my cheeks are hurting, my side is hurting. You're so funny." So I was like, "Okay." So it started from there. In this little small church in Atlanta, Georgia, and I went and made people laugh, made the women laugh, and that's what I did for the first 3 years of me doing stand-up comedy, and I'm doing ear quotes for those of you that can't see me.
Yeah.
I never called it stand-up comedy. I was just going to make people laugh, and when I posted on social media, all of my classmates went wild. "Oh my god, you were funny on the school bus, you were funny in class, we knew you was gonna be a comedian." I'm like, "Who, me?" Like, it was never a thing, "Oh, I want to be a comedian when I grow up."
Yeah. Right. I wondered if you were maybe one of those people that people wrote in your yearbook saying, the class clown, the one that's going to be a comedian.
I believe so. Yes, and I need to go back and look at that. My memory book, which I still have from high school, 1990 book, my high school yearbook. Imma go back and see what people wrote. That's interesting.
Yeah. I like how you reframed it, by the way. I'm showing up and making people laugh.
Yeah.
It feels so much more relaxed than
Mhm.
stand-up comedian, even
Yeah.
for your own purpose of being able to show up
Right.
and be relaxed and do what you do. Those first few experiences, how did you do that? Did you plan what you would say? Just get up there and talk?
I did. I wrote it out. I'm like, "What am I gonna talk about?" Because she said I tell stories, which I didn't know. I was just telling people of incidences that happened in my life. I went to church and I saw this lady or things of growing up, just stories that happened to me over time. They probably got a little more embellished to make it more funny. But yeah, I wrote out what I was going to talk about, how people behaved in church and what I saw observing different people. I've always said it was easy for me to say what other people were thinking. That's what a
Mm,
comedian does. A
yep.
comedian says what other people are thinking because some people are not brave enough to say it. They may think to themselves, oh my God, why are they doing that? But I'd say it.
Yeah.
So my very first show, I remember writing it out. And my first thing was, what am I going to call myself? My name is LaQuisha. It's spelled with the Q. And so I said, Lady Q, because the Q is capitalized in my name.
Yes.
So I said, Lady Q. I was like, okay. And then I wrote about my whole thing was about church. It was about church, growing
Yeah.
up in church, visiting different churches, and people loved it. Now, during that time, I would say too, I was a youth pastor. So I was used to already speaking in front of people.
Okay.
So that wasn't a problem. But it was just, okay, now what am I going to talk about? And so I was used to writing out like my sermons and different things. So anytime I was before people, I always had something to go off of. So I have to write out what I want to say. 9 times out of 10, stuck to it. And then sometimes I just went way left.
That's great.
And so that's what happened the first few times. And then after I did it maybe 2 or 3 times, I just kind of developed those stories and you memorize them because there's stories that actually happen to you. It's just a sequence of order that you want to put them in because when you transition from one story to another, they have to mesh. If I'm talking about worship, then I may talk about the praise and worship leader and how she sings. And then I may end with what the pastor preached about and how everybody was looking or what somebody did while he was preaching. So there's a transition in it when you're doing comedy. You can't say you're talking about worship and now you're talking about washing clothes at home. You've lost the audience unless
Yeah.
you're working while you're watching clothes. So that's how that.
That's funny. As a youth pastor, kids can't lie. So you were probably realizing your gifts when you were talking to kids, depending on the age group.
The kids love me. They call me Miss Lakeisha or Pastor Q. And with the kids, I did a lot of illustration. So I did a lot of illustrated sermons and I did all the ages. And there were times where all the kids came together. Our whole entire youth department came together and there was a sermon. I mainly dealt with the middle school kids and then the high schoolers. I loved them as well because sometimes they wouldn't even, it was like, we don't want anybody else. We want you. And I'm like, I know. And they're in their late 20s and their 30s and up. And I still have that effect in that relationship with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice.
Yes.
So you've been doing this for a long time. 2008, that's 17 years. How do you keep your material fresh? Like, where do you get your stories?
Well, there's 2 parts to that. I've been using the same material, some of the same material for 17 years, and then some of it is life changing. So,
Mm,
started off as a single parent of 2 younger children, middle school and high school at the time. So that was my material, being a single mom of 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl. So that material has changed. That was a big part of my material and people loved it. I even made up songs. Beyonce has a song, All the Single Ladies,
yes.
and I made up a song called All the Single Mamas. It was crazy. It was a little hit
Yeah.
because people loved it. And then I transitioned into having millennials. Well, they're still millennials, but young adults. My daughter going off to college. Me always sending her money or a care package became material. Her asking for money. Me going every weekend to get her, like, why are you going away if you want to come back every week? Well, that
Yeah.
became material. Then that changed. And then when my kids got older and more independent, although they never moved out during that time. So I talked about that. Who still have adult children living at home? That
Yeah.
was, and then it was now I'm dating. So let's talk about dating. And that was most of my material up until 4 years ago when I met my man, my husband.
Yeah. Can't talk
So
about
now
dating anymore.
I know. Yes, no more dating. So now I'm in the process of writing new material. and meeting Jacqueline,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, everything is coming together. The God is setting up this divine order and encounter where I'm like, okay, what do I do now? How am I going to do this? I'm 4 years into it. I married a giant, a gentle giant. He's 6'9",
Wow.
330 pounds.
Wow. That is tall.
I've never been married. So now my material is getting married later in age. I got engaged and married at the age of 48,
Okay.
and I'm his third marriage. So now I'm writing material for that and then moving from Atlanta to Florida. So it's a lot that has transitioned in my life that I have so much to write about. This is all new to me. So how am I going to say it? How am I going to relate to people? So
Mm.
here we are. Now I got to sit down, put the pen to the paper, as you say,
Yep.
and make it happen and make it funny.
Yeah. No pressure. I love so many things about your story. One, you're paying attention to what's going on in your life. Your life is your material.
Yes.
That's also something I say to writers too, because they're like, I don't have anything to write about. And I ask, well, you're alive, you're breathing. Well, have
Yeah.
you left the house this week or this month? If you haven't left your
Right.
house, done anything, you're going to run out of material. But you do have a past. You can also write about that. But it's all material for things that you can share with people. And that's what's relatable. You're not up
Yeah.
there making fiction. You're,
Exactly.
you're saying the things that people are thinking and won't say out
Right.
loud. And that's funny.
And they relate to.
Yeah.
I think of how many single moms they are, or think of how many people who are dating. I dated since all my life. I've been a single mom. I've never been married. So think of people who dated in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s. That was a huge audience.
Yeah.
And now, okay, married. Whew, that's a whole new ball game right there.
Right.
A whole new ball game. And so it's like, oh, getting married, sharing space, seeing someone every day, which I love. Now, don't get me wrong. I love being married because my prayer was, God, I want to be a wife. I wanted to be a wife early on in life. I always told people I had my wedding plan since I was 15 years old. So I've always wanted to be married. But then my prayer changed. God, make me a godly wife.
Mm.
So my prayer changed, and even in that was a story, which I still tell now, like how I had an argument with God back in 2018. And he said, okay, well, I need you to pray for your husband. If you want a husband, pray for your husband. And I was like, oh my God, okay. I got up every morning. I'm praying for my husband. I mean, Jacqueline, when I say I was praying for my husband, like this man was in the house. We were already married. I'm praying over his food. I'm praying for other women to stay away from him because he's mine, everything. And 2018 ended and I did not have a man. I don't even remember if I had a date. And so I argued with God. I'm like, God, how you going to tell me to pray for something and I'm diligent in it and I'm consistent and I'm praying every day. And here it is, 365 days later, it's still nothing. So I was like, you know what? Forget it. I don't want it. I'm just going to be single. I'm fine with being single. I'm literally yelling, like, we're going head to toe. Well, I'm going head to toe. God is probably just looking at me like, okay, come on, get it all out.
Yeah. Like, are you done yet?
Yeah, exactly. And 2019 was one of my best years of booking and traveling ever. I literally traveled around the world. I believe that was the year I went to the Bahamas or Jamaica. I traveled internationally to do comedy. And it's like every week I was booked, I was flying somewhere, I was busy. And I'm the type of person, I celebrate my birthday the whole month. My birthday's in November. So I had all of these events planned. People showed up. I'm not talking like 5, 10 people. No, like 20 people. I had a big skating party. It's just all these events. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm there right. I'm like all emotional. I'm like, oh my God, God is coming to take me because it's just too real. And then 2020, COVID happened.
Right.
My calendar for 2020 is already filling up. Like through the summer, I'm booked going into the fall because during the summer, I do a lot of family reunions.
Mm.
And then the fall, people start planning for holidays. And then I do breast cancer all month of October. I'm always doing a breast cancer event. And because of COVID, every single booking was canceled, not postponed. taken off the calendar. We didn't know when we were coming back outside.
Yeah, what did you do for someone who was used to being out in the world, talking to people, telling jokes? Did you
I
take your
crashed.
show to Zoom after
Yes,
you
and
cried?
I did that, yeah. Now keep in mind, I had a full-time corporate job while I'm doing my comedy. So I'm doing corporate at day and comedy at night. There were times I would literally somebody would book me for a luncheon, and I would take like a 2, 3-hour vacation, and I would go do comedy and come back and finish work. It was amazing. But during COVID, I was one of the few comedians that did virtual comedy,
Mhm.
and that is the hardest thing because you can't hear them laughing.
Yeah.
So you literally have to laugh at yourself.
Oh, I can't imagine. That is so hard.
Yeah, and because everybody has to be muted because it goes in and out and different things like that. So I got creative and I'm like, okay, because if you think about it, during COVID, not many people were using Zoom and Teams, so they weren't that familiar with it. So people had to log on like 30 minutes early just to make sure they were connected.
They
They
weren't
were
used to
just,
it.
yeah, they weren't used to it. So I'm like, I'm trying to, okay, use your reactions. And they're looking at me like, I'm like, okay, draw a smiley face on a piece of paper if I'm funny and just hold it up every time you want to laugh. So I got creative with it. And I was one of the few comedians, some comedians just wouldn't do it. They like, I'm not doing that because
Mhm.
we get our
Right.
energy from the crowd when the crowd is laughing, when the crowd gives us an applause. When you're doing crowd work, you look at someone, you see a couple, are you guys married? Are you just shacking up? Which one is
Yeah.
it? So you can't do any of that on Zoom. You literally have to just talk. And I'm really animated anyway, so I would just be all in the camera and
Yeah. I wonder if that time actually made you a stronger comedian because you pushed through that and did it anyway, as opposed to taking a break for a
yeah,
year or whatever.
yeah. I think it did. And then working from home and being on Teams and Zoom on a regular, I was used to it. So I'm like, now I just gotta make people laugh. Even a group from my company, they hired me to make them laugh. And that was fun. I worked in HR. I made a really funny face, you guys.
I can think of like all the HR jokes that happen in a corporate environment. Like, don't tell
Yes.
HR what we're talking about right now.
Right,
That kind of thing.
exactly. And I am HR. It did make me stronger because now I'm not afraid of the silence. And I remember, I think it was Steve Harvey that said it. He said, "Don't be afraid of the silence because that means people are listening to you." Because every line doesn't have to be like, ha ha ha, funny. It could be a,
Right.
I never thought about that. Like, oh, wow. You make people think about things like, oh, okay. So now it's a whole nother level of comedy that I'm experiencing and going through and accepting,
Yeah.
accepting.
I love that. I'm curious if you have a process for, I call it mining for stories. Do you keep a document or a file of all the stories you could potentially tell?
Not physically, no, mentally, maybe. And then I don't even know if my mental capacity is that big, but that's something I need to write that. I recently started back journaling.
Yeah.
I'm not as consistent as I would like to be, but I'm one of those people, and I don't even know if I should be saying this to you, the writer,
There's no
but I'm one
judgment
of
on
those
this.
people that when I get gung ho, I'm going to journal. I buy a new journal.
Yeah.
So I have maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 journals.
Yeah.
And each journal has about 20 pages of stuff in it from different periods of time. But it's still interesting to go back and read snippets of something. I found this one journal not too long ago and it had nickels taped to the page. And I was like, oh my God, what was this about? I went to church and this lady told me to get 5 nickels. And basically, she prophesied and said something, but I have to go back and remember it because when I read it, I was trying to think of that period in my life and what actually happened and why. But I didn't write down what the 5 nickels represented. But it was interesting just to see 5 nickels, and that was back in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And I had those nickels taped to it. But yeah, I have all these journals, and they have different dates because it's like, okay, let's write. I'm gonna write. I'm gonna journal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get myself together, and I do it for about 60 days, and
Yep.
then I go back periodically and write, but it's still interesting to go back and see that. So if I'm consistent and write all of these stories, because man, I got some stories. I do
I can
a lot.
imagine. Side note on the journals, it's okay to have many journals. I think every writer is a collector of them because you see a pretty one and you're like, "Oh, I need this one." I have many that are just not filled up. It's fine.
Well, I don't feel that bad. Thank you.
No, not at all. And something I also teach the writers I work with is you don't have to write every day. It's the
Yeah.
page is there when you need it. Or even
I
if you
should
do
take care.
want to write daily and you write one sentence,
Yeah.
that's enough.
Okay. Because I have things in my mind like, if you talk about journaling, I gotta write every night before I go to bed, or is there a certain time of night do I need to write? I'm not really thinking about a whole lot, and then I just keep writing, like, I don't know if I'm making up stuff or just making it so I fill up the page, and then I'm like, "Should I use the back of the page or should I use the front of the next page?" I am not an overthinker at all, but when it comes to certain things like that, I'm like, "Okay, am I doing this right? Is there a wrong way?"
No, there's no wrong way. I'm glad you're not an overthinker, though. I don't think you can be to be a comedian.
Yeah, no, not at all.
There's no time for thinking. It's open your mouth and whatever's coming out is what's
Exactly.
I'm curious about your joke writing process.
Okay.
So if you say you have a new event coming up, even if you have an example of a specific one you want to talk through, how do you plan what you're going to say?
Okay, so glad you asked that because you're gonna help me with this. So I do have pretty large I have one in Atlanta on January 30th where I'm doing a Live to Lead leadership conference. I'm emceeing that. So emceeing and doing a stand-up set, two different things. So
Right.
when you're emceeing an event, of course, that person is on stage from start to finish. Like they're opening, they're filling in, and they're closing out whatever that event is. So I'm emceeing a leadership conference and they hired a comedian. So they want me to be funny. I have leadership experience as well. They hired me for that reason because I'm a leader and I'm a comedian,
Mhm.
but they want me to be funny. So for weeks, ever since this was presented to me last summer, I'm like, what am I going to talk about? The lineup is Valerie Burt, John Maxwell, the owner of the Hannah Bananas,
Yeah.
Jesse Cole, and Irvin Watson. He is like the main host of over everything. But anyway, so now I'm thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? That's what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Leaders, leadership. And I ran a blank for the longest. And then I started thinking about people I know who are now who everybody now is a coach, a life coach. Everyone is a life coach. You go through like we're talking life coach now, our phones are listening to us. So every life coach ad is going to start coming up on our phones right now. Exactly. So it's going to be, are you a woman and you want to speak to other women? So now my thing is to, okay, talk about these ads that come across for everyone to be a life coach or a leader and different things like that. So I started writing this material about people I know that are new to leadership or life coaching and they know everything. They want to coach you through making a sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to make that sandwich, you need to position yourself and position your mind. Girl, wait a minute. You just became a life coach. I know how to make a sandwich. So now I never want to offend anybody. So I always tell people because now the world is so sensitive. So, so sensitive. Oh my goodness. Guys, these are jokes. These are jokes. But anyway, I never want to offend anybody, but I always just try to think of things like, okay, we all know that one person that just is your friend, life coach, and they give you all of these advice and different things, but you look at their life and it's like, you're trying to give me nutrition advice and you
Right.
got that McDonald's bag in your hand. Like, really? So now that's how I think about it. I think about the event. I think about who's on the event and how I can relate to it. First of all, I was in leadership. So I always tell people being in leadership, I always tell people I love being a youth pastor. And I said, I was a youth pastor for 12 years till I started drinking. And I said, it wasn't the kids.
Right.
I said, it was the parents that wouldn't come pick up their kids after church. So I'm just sitting there. Pastor gave the benediction hours ago, and the parents in the parking lot talking like they don't have kids. So I relate to it on a personal level. And so then I start to write material. But hosting is a little bit different because you have to open up. So I have to do 5 minutes of jokes. And
Mm.
people are like, oh, 5 minutes, that's nothing. I'm like, have you ever tried to talk for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
That's pretty long. And then I'll introduce someone, and then I got to come back, and you got to keep the crowd up. You got to be with these transitions. So that's how I prepare for something. Another event, right quick, I have is the A Night of Love and Laughter with Purposeful Living Women.
Yes.
It's date night. It's a pre-Valentine thing. So I'm going to be a little more in my element with that because we're talking about relationships. We're talking about dating, which I'm out of the dating scene, but it hasn't been that long. People haven't really changed. So I can talk about dating and how people are when they're dating.
Yeah.
And then I can talk about getting married late in age for those that may be in a crowd who got married late in age or who wants to be married with their significant other and they're a little bit older. And then newly married, I can relate to those couples. And then just being an empty nester. We have adult children. And then we have a blended family. So I'm really going to be in my element there. But now it's all okay. How do I write? What am I going to talk about first?
Yeah.
That's always my biggest thing. What's going to be the first thing I say? Because when I tell people I'm a comedian, they always say, you don't look like you're a comedian.
What are the comedians supposed to look like?
No. Or they would say something funny.
And you're like, it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way. No. One guy, he told me, he said, give me your best joke. And I'm like, sir, he's like, come on, give me your best joke. I don't even remember what I said to him, but I did. I made him laugh. Whatever I said, I made him laugh. I know that.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. That's how I prepare. I think of the event. I think of my audience. I think of my personal experiences. And then sometimes I'll just write it out. And a lot of times, even when I write it out, never say it like I write it out because it has to flow. I'm just talking to you, but I have to study it. Like, okay, girl, get yourself together. But that's what open mic night is for, which I haven't been to since I moved to Florida
Yeah.
because open mic at a comedy club gives you the opportunity to work. We call it workout,
Okay. That makes sense.
workout.
Yeah. I was
Yep.
going to ask, how do you test new material
Yeah.
in settings like that?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad I didn't ask what's your best joke because I was thinking of asking. I'm glad I didn't.
So my jokes are stories that leads up to, and it's so funny to watch people's faces, like waiting for the punchline.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, how is this going to end? Where is she going with this? And then people relate. People relate.
Yeah. What
So
do
it's,
you do if a joke flops or doesn't land? How do you handle that?
I would say, well, it was funny when I wrote it. And that's the reaction I get. People
Right.
laugh.
Yeah.
There was one time in my life, I went to open mic night at a comedy club in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was a young crowd. I'm talking 20s. If anybody in there was in their 30s, it was crazy because I made the mistake by saying, where are my 50-year-olds at? No one raised their hand. I was like, okay, well, being in my 50s, I literally,
Oh man.
and I was like, why, whatever, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, that's my long comedian lady Q. Thank you guys for coming out. Laughter is healing, my purpose, my passion. God bless. Good night. It's like, okay, old lady, get off the stage.
Oh
It was,
no.
and I've been to that spot before, killed it,
Yeah.
great. Went back, did the same jokes, and it was like, no. So you have to read the room as a comedian. You have to read the room.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. When you say that you don't want to offend people, have you had people get offended in your audience?
I had one time, but I didn't notice till years later.
Okay.
I did a joke about the music that was being played in church. And it was like gospel mixed with hip hop. And I said, you can't do that because people's body move a little different.
Yeah.
So I use the microphone stand as a dancing pole.
Yeah, I love it. Let me guess, was one person mad?
One person
One
was
person.
mad. One person was mad. And again, I didn't know that because literally the crowd went crazy. Like I'm talking like da 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 da. So I saw this lady some years ago at another event and she was like, "Oh, Lady Q, I just think you're so funny. But that one joke you did, like you were dancing on a pole, that was just really, that was not appropriate for church." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, thank you for letting me know."
But
And I
all
kind
800 other people laughed,
of laughed.
so we're
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that part, because it's true. I'm like, don't get offended with me, get offended with the musicians or whoever is playing the music in the church. That's inappropriate because it could lead to other people moving body parts that shouldn't be moved that way. But when they hear certain music, it's like, oh, sounds familiar. Because I love to dance. I tell people I love to dance. So, it's no telling. I say, you better keep it churchy because if you do anything other than that, I don't know which way my senses are going to go because God's still working on me.
Yeah, I love that. There's always gonna be one person who's like, "Don't like that."
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and you say a quiet prayer for them.
And move forward.
And move
Yeah.
on.
And that's what I did. I didn't get offended by it because I'm like, okay, I've done that joke a million times and it has never bombed. Like, never, ever bombed. So, okay. Bye, lady.
Yeah, you're like, "I'm not gonna rewrite my whole material because of one person."
Exactly. Because you can't please everyone.
Oh, no.
And don't even try to. Yeah,
No, that would be way too exhausting.
exactly.
I'd love to hear if you have a tip for anyone who wants to tell a story.
Be authentically you.
Mm,
And when I say that, it's rare, very rare if I sit down in front of the television and watch other comedians because they're funny, but I don't want to try to sound like them or act like them or even tell a joke like them. So I'm really careful when I do that. I would go to comedy clubs and watch other comedians. I would do that.
mhm.
Certain specials I may watch, but I'm real careful not to really do a whole lot of it. So when telling your story, be authentically you. Find yourself, find your voice, use your regular voice. I've been told that too, because sometimes I put on my work voice.
Yeah.
The work voice sounds like the automated system.
Yeah, people
Hi,
tell me, they're
everyone.
like, "Why you have your customer service voice on?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Strip it back."
Yeah. So
Mm,
use your regular voice. When you're talking to the kids, that's the voice you want to use and relax and have fun. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable because people want the truth when you're writing. And even if you're going to tell a story, just be authentically you and make it for what you would want to hear and then put it on paper for others to hear. That's how I operate in my life. Do unto others as you would have to do unto you.
yeah.
And so I treat people the way I want to be treated. I perform the way I would want to see a performance.
Mhm.
I don't care if there's 2 people in a crowd, 200 or 2,000, you're going to get the same performance. And that's a tip, be authentically you.
That is so powerful and so relatable for writing and speaking. I also find it interesting that you mentioned that you don't want to watch a lot of other comedians.
Mhm.
You're intentional about it. And I think this is
Yes.
where writers can also fall into a trap where they read too many books and they start to sound like everyone else they're reading, or you're busy consuming. Like, imagine if you spent 6 days a week watching
Yeah.
comedy to try to get new
Mhm.
material.
Yeah.
You're taking everyone else's stuff, but not when are
Exactly.
you spending time with yourself? Your story, your material, like how you
Exactly. And you start to take on those certain behaviors. You start to stand like certain people. You start to say certain words like certain people or like a punchline. Like my kind of filler is, come on, somebody. I always say, come on, somebody, to kind of get a reaction from the crowd. But if somebody else says, do you hear me? Do you hear me? So if you watch that, you're going to probably take that on. You start saying it. And then I'm like, don't, so, something.
right. That
Yeah,
is
so I
so
am intentional about it.
that is great advice. I love that.
Yes.
Final question. It's an easy one. When you're writing jokes, working on materials, do you have a particular beverage you like to sip? What are you drinking?
If it's not water, it is tea. I love hot tea.
Yes.
I'm a hot tea drinker. It's crazy. I love hot tea, but don't like iced tea.
I don't like
No.
ice in anything personally.
Yes.
I like it all hot.
Yeah. I don't like cold tea or iced tea. But yeah, it's hot tea. And my favorite is so crazy. Well, I'm moving now, but it used to be Earl Grey, but now I like the more citrusy type tea with lemon and honey and one sweetener. And that's what I'm doing because I have to keep a clear mind. I love wine, but I have to keep a clear mind, and wine can make you a little foggy. So hot tea is my favorite. I just love tea. It just put me in my warm, comfortable, cozy place.
Yes. So I do have one more question now that you mentioned. What do you do to protect your voice before you get on stage? Because some writers I work with also want to speak on stage.
Mhm.
What do you do for your voice? Keep it strong.
I'm limited on talking anyway. My whole process for that week is I'm meditating on the first thing I'm going to say when I get on stage. Because believe it or not, 17 years later, I am shaking in my heels. I am so nervous. And so the whole week I'm thinking, what song am I gonna come out to? Are they gonna have a DJ for me to come out to a song? If I don't have a song, how am I coming out? So they're gonna overthink it for a hot second. But the whole week I'm meditating. And then the day of, I don't eat, but I do make sure that I have liquid so I won't get dehydrated and pass out. And it's very little talk. I don't answer my phone.
Wow.
I'm probably not even on my phone as far as like social media strolling or anything like that, especially if I have to drive myself. I'm literally in solitude type thing. I'm getting my mind because it's so crazy when I invite people to my shows. Everybody want to text me like all the information that's already on the flyer. What time does it start? What do I need to wear? I'm like, when you go to a comedy club, you don't call the manager. I'm
No.
like, no, I'm booked. This is not my show. I'm just one of the comedians on the show or the headliner. I don't know. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
So I literally don't. I'm not even on my phone. That
Yeah.
really talk. Rarely talk the whole day.
That
Yeah.
is very smart. I wonder if you can set up an autoresponder on your text messages. At
I
that
know.
time.
I need to figure that
Got
out.
questions? Save them. Just come and laugh.
But you know what I noticed? When you ignore people, they find the answer.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And then when you answer them like 2 hours later, oh, never mind. I got it.
Oh my. Keisha, thank you. This was a delight. I learned so much. I think comedians are so highly intelligent. I look up to them. I look up to you. And the way you tell stories, the way you communicate, the way you bring your energy into a room, it is beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jacqueline. I had an amazing time. Thank you so much.
I hope you truly enjoyed this episode of How Women Write and that you are taking this advice and using it in all the things you are writing for your books and business. I would be over the moon if you can leave a rating, review, or share this episode with someone who you think needs it. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.